Are you looking for sounds to put into music that you're producing, tracks that you're producing? Well, if so, this video hopefully will help you out a little bit. My name's Jonathan Clark. I'm also known as DJ Bolivia, and I'm here with Francis Cormier, also known as Urban Francis. And we've been working on some tracks together, and we thought we'd do a quick video to tell you about a service. It's from a website called splice.com, and it's called Splice Sounds. And it's a great place to find samples and loops and things for your own music. So if you're producing a track, and let's say that you're working on electronic music, you're not just recording traditional instruments like guitars and vocals and stuff like that. You're looking to put together an electronic music track, and you're looking for sources for sounds. Well, obviously some of the music that you get, that you put together, you can use sounds that come from within your digital audio workstation, your DAW, because most DAWs have access to sounds within them, like certain pieces of the drum kit. They'll have things like synthesizers built in, perhaps as a virtual studio technology instrument, a VSTI. So different VSTIs within your DAW can produce different sounds. But most of these, they're limited to a certain number of different ranges of sounds, styles of sounds and stuff like that. So you may have, only as few as a few dozen sounds coming out of a specific software synthesizer. You may have actually thousands. But no matter what, I think you'll always get to a point where you find you start to get bored with your VSTIs that you have access to. And so you start branching out and thinking, where am I going to get some different sounds that I'm not using over and over again, I'm not bored with? Where am I going to find some more music to add variety to my music? Okay, so at this point, when a producer gets to that point, you start looking online for stuff. And most people go looking for what's called a sample pack. And a sample pack can contain different samples of music. It can contain things like they're called one-shots, and so it's a single sound that plays once. So it might be like a single drum hit, a hit of a snare drum. It might be a rim shot on a snare. It may be a closed hi-hat, an open hi-hat, maybe a kick drum or a tom. Those are just within the rhythm section. There's other rhythm instruments, like shakers. And there's all sorts of traditional instruments, like you could have a sound that is a short recording of a single note from a saxophone. You could have a sound that's a recording of a whole phrase from a trumpet, 7, 8 different notes. So those are all one-shots. And there's also something called loops. And so loops is used a little bit more in electronic music that is repetitive, like house music, techno, stuff like that. And so with a loop, what happens is it's basically a one-shot, but it's structured in a way that if you keep playing it over and over, it sounds good rhythmically. So, if you're looking for, say, a kick drum loop, probably what it'll have is 4 separate versions of a one-shot laid out as 4 different beats within a loop. And so your loop could be 4 beats long, 1 bar long, and then that loop plays over and over and over again through your track. Okay, so some people will be looking for loops, some will be looking for one-shots, some will be looking for both types. And traditionally there's been quite a few websites online for the last decade or so that a lot of producers use as their go-to websites. And so places like Producer Loops, Loop Masters, Prime Loops, Vengeance, Big Fish, Looperman, Wave Alchemy, there's quite a few sites. That's just half a dozen. And, I could probably think of 20 more if I thought about it for a while. Now, the only problem with those websites, and there's a lot of good websites there with a lot of good music, but the problem is buying a sample pack often limits you because, the sample pack, you may be paying, anywhere from $10 to $30 or more for a sample pack. Your sample pack is going to have a whole bunch of different sounds. They should be kind of related, although it may be different types of sounds. Like you may have drum samples and instrument samples and vocal samples all within the same sample pack. But your sample pack, with its couple dozen sounds, there may only be a couple sounds in there that you want. Like, you know, say you've got a sample pack with 58 sounds, there may only be 3 sounds in there that you want to use in your production. So all of a sudden you're paying $20, $30 for the sample pack and you're only using a couple sounds. Well, those samples are starting to get pretty expensive. And it's a little bit frustrating too, having to go and buy full sample packs if you're looking to mix and match different stuff. It's almost like the old days when, you know, to buy a single song, you had to buy the entire vinyl album. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of recommending that people do buy full albums, but the point is, if you're trying to be efficient with music production, sometimes you want those individual parts. Okay, so there's this website called splice.com, and within Splice, well, Splice has several different sections. It's got its Splice Sounds, which is what we're going to focus on. It's got the Splice Community, it's got the Splice Studio, it's got a blog, and it's got a plugin section. So, but we're going to focus on the Splice Sounds section here in just a couple minutes. So those other things that I talked about, maybe let me touch on those very, very quickly. And I guess the best way to do that is to go into the website and just demonstrate some of this as we go. Now, before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of background on Splice. If it's a paid service, if you want to sign up for it, you can get a free account to test it out. We'll go through that step here in just a second. I've already got an account. Francis already has an account, but we'll go through the testing of setting up a temporary account, just so you can see how it happens. And basically, with your starter account, you get a few credits to get you rolling. Normally, you pay 2 different rates to be a member of Splice. It's a monthly rate, and so the low price for a basic account gives you 100 credits per month. The higher price gives you 300 credits per month. And so each credit basically works as, it lets you buy 1 sample. And so if you've got, let's say you've got the 300 credit per month package, you can buy 300 credits in a single month. That's a lot of different samples. So that's the equivalent of buying a couple sample packs. It's cheaper than buying a couple sample packs. And the neat thing is, if you don't use up all of your credits at the end of the month, it rolls over. So let's say I had the 300 per month. I'd only download 50 samples in the first month. So I got 250 credits left over. Well, the next month I'll have 550 available. And then if I don't do anything for a month, I'll have 850 available. So this is a really, really good deal. So we'll get into this in a little bit more, but for now, let's just get into the process of setting up an account, and I'll give you a very quick overview of Splice, all 5 sections, and then we'll drill down and really focus on the sounds area. Okay, let's go to the splice.com website, and we'll show you exactly what we've been talking about. And Francis and I already have accounts there, but we will set up a temporary account just to show you what's involved when you go there yourself for the first time. So you're going to go to splice.com. First thing that's going to show up is an option to sign up for free. You're going to pick a username, and you cannot have any spaces in your username. I'm going to call this one Temp DJ Bolivia. I'll put my full name in. I'll put an email address in. And you can't repeat an email address, so I'll have to put in a random one here. There's a password. Accept the terms. Sign in. Perfect. Okay. So here's the main screen. You can see in the top left the options that I was talking about. The studio, the community, the sounds, which is what we're going to focus on, plugins, and there should be a blog link there also. I don't see it. I'm not sure why. We'll figure that out later. Go over to the right side. You'll see some information about your account, your profile, settings, installation, logout. Installation, you'll wonder what that is. Well, let's look at Studio. And you'll see. When you go into Studio, one of the top things here you'll see is Install Splice. And so if you haven't installed it yet, you go to the install screen and you're going to have to choose your operating system, etc., and install that. Now, I'm not going to bother doing that because it's already installed on this computer, but normally that has to be done. And it's something similar to, like, if you're used to Dropbox as a cloud app, same thing. You have to have the Dropbox app running on your laptop. So the Splice app is pretty small. It's about 7 megabytes, I think. So it's a pretty quick install and download. And then what happens once you've got the Splice app installed, you can go into, well, I can't see them actually right now. So what would normally happen is you can do your collaborations and things like this. So you can save a project online and say Francis wants to work on it, I want to work on it, we're in different parts of the country, then we can both work on it. Our versions and changes are both being saved in a master in the cloud so we can see what each other is doing, okay? So that's not the focus of this video, so I won't go into it in any more detail, but that's basically what this whole studio section is about and installing the app is about. Now moving over to the community. The community is sort of like a giant message board, a giant forums, kind of like a PHP BB3 board, but a lot fancier. And so you look at this and you can see all these different tracks that people are working on, sharing, talking about, getting feedback on. So for example, this is part of a contest, Dead Mouse featuring Grabbits, Let's Go. It's got quite a few plays, 27,000 plays. A little bit of a description, shows the project it's being used in, Ableton Live 9. You go down to the next one, we've got an FL Studio version of FL Studio project going on down there. Okay, describes the genre, the tempo, etc. Okay, there's tons and tons of projects here. You can see what other people are doing. You can play with their projects. You can filter stuff, all genres. Well, what if I only wanted to look for some trip-hop stuff? I can do that. Okay, and then all DAWs, well, you can filter out specific editors that you want to use. Okay, so anyway, this is basically the community section. Tons and tons of users. You'll be able to get all kinds of feedback. You'll be able to find all sorts of neat things. So you can explore that on your own. Sounds, we'll talk about in just a moment. I'll get Francis to talk about that. And then I'll come back and do the plugin section. And the blog part that's missing, basically, it's got a whole lot of articles and stuff like that. I'll try and figure out why we can't see that right now. But the blog section has different subsections. For example, it's got a whole section of artists, featured artists. It's got an engineering section, all kinds of cool articles, good stuff. So anyway, let's for now focus on what the video is supposed to be about, sounds. Okay, and so I'm going to get Francis to take over here, and we'll go through that section.
I'm going to take us through a virtual tour of the sounds section on Splice. When I start a track, I usually start with drums. So under here, under instruments, we're going to click on drums. And as you can see, we're in my account now, and it says I have 808 credits, and I'm on the 300 credit plan a month. And so this shows you how they roll over. So now I have 808 credits that I can use. And then next month there'll be another 300 credits added to it. So when I clicked on drums, we're given over 300,000 matching samples, which is way too many to start with. So when I was working on this, when I started this track with Bolivia, we decided to choose a genre. And under genres, you have trance, urban, breakbeat, house, and there's techno. And this song did turn out to be a techno song, but I'm pretty sure I started under the tech house genre. So this brought the samples down to 71,299, which is still too many. So the next question you can ask yourself is, what BPM do you want it at? And in our genre, most tracks are between 120 and 130. So for the BPM, you can set it using this, and I'll set the low at 119 is okay, and I'll set the high at 130.
And so that'll filter out so only the stuff between 119 and 130 is all that will pop up.
once you click on update.
Okay.
Hoping this gives us, this knocked it down to 32,000 samples, which is still too many to work with. So the next thing I did was we chose a key, and for our song we chose a key of A. And I'm going to just press A for now, and you can go to major and minor, but I'm just going to press A to see what it, you always trying to narrow down your matching samples. Sometimes you can narrow it down too much. So now we're at 412, and that's a number that I can work with. So as you can see here, you can scroll down, and if you start on this side, it shows you the pack, it shows you the wave, it gives you the file name, it shows you the key, and it gives you the BPM. And then the heart is to add it to your likes, and then the arrow is to use a credit and download it. So I'm just going to click on this to give you an idea of this, what happens. So I'm clicking on the very first sample, and it's a techno loop. So if I like that, I'll click on the heart, and then that will add it to my likes, which is on the right here on the far left. And I already have a couple likes, 3 now. I'm going to go back. To go back, you just press on that arrow, and you're back to our 412 samples. And as I scroll down, you're gonna see a light blue lit up here, and that means that's a sound that I already downloaded. And I'm pretty sure in our track Hijack that this is used in as a drum fill.
That's the one that we used in the turnaround section.
Yep. And as I scroll down, gives you different samples, but I'm kind of looking for samples that I don't want to confuse you, but I'm looking for samples that I had downloaded for the Hijack, so I'll be showing you ones, or you'll be listening to ones that we actually use in the project. The sound quality is great on Splice too. So
I have a question. These samples, when you download a sample, it downloads to your laptop, and even though you have this subscription basis for the website, once you've downloaded it, you can use it in your own project. And even, let's say that you lose your job and you have to close off your subscription, you're not part of Splice anymore, you've got that sound downloaded in your project, and it's there
for life.
It's
and it's
permanent.
royalty free.
And it's royalty free, which is good.
So after drums, the thing that I always think of is bass lines or bass. So in Hijack, we actually downloaded some analog sounding bass. So I'm going to click on bass here, and it's still under the tech house. I'm not sure if I want to leave it on that tempo. Oh well, we have 1,623 matches, which I still find kind of high. But actually underneath here, this narrows it down more too. So I can click on sub, and it will only list the sub basses. So now we're down to 111. I'm going to look through here, scroll down, and I'm looking again on the right here, looking for sounds that I had already downloaded, just to hopefully view ones that we had used in our project. And I might not find any. Well, I guess I didn't find any. I guess we can just go to the top here. So this is subs. So it'll be very low sounding. And I guess another thing, I'm using the mouse here, but you can also use the arrow keys, and they suggest you do that. And if I use the down arrow, it'll jump to the next sample and play it. And then the up arrows will go back up. So those are different basses. And you can do, I guess I didn't show anything, but there's loops and one-shots. So right now it's on both. So you can click on just loops, which should probably give us, okay, so in this case all the ones in the sub are loops. So with one-shots there's probably none, like zero, and it goes zero matching samples. So that's when you, and there's a reset button there. So there's different things you can search for when you're making a track. Drums, I always search for percussion too to get some cool sounds. Bass. I use Splice a lot for vocals too. I get almost all the vocals I use in tracks, and the vocal sample that we used in Hijack was gotten from Splice.
So can we do can I get you to do a quick demonstration for people? Let's pretend that we're starting a fresh new track, and we're going to do a house track, and we need to find 3 loops to get us started. We need a drum loop, we need a bass loop, and we need a piano loop. How would you go about that whole process of doing it?
Okay, so it's going to be a house track.
Yep.
So we'll click here on Tech House, and it gives us lots of different subgenres. I wonder if you can click on that. Oh yeah, you can click on the top genre. So this is house everything.
Okay, and so let's say we're going for a tempo of 128. So you're probably going to want to play with that range a little bit.
Okay.
And maybe go, say, a higher low filter. Let's say 125 to 130.
And that gives us 644, which isn't too bad, but that's for vocals. So we want to start with drums.
Yeah, let's just pick a one drum loop.
This is a loop I already have. I think actually that's the loop that I played just for you. We'll try the first one here. It's a Cox Loop. And actually should check to see what we're still under. So it is in the key of A. So do we want to stay in the key of A or?
Let's go with a different key. Let's go D.
Okay. Now we're down to 174. I'll click. So this is the drum loop. So I'll click on play it. This is from a Carl Cox sample pack. That's kind of cool. So we're gonna want to download it.
Yeah. Well, let's find one that's got no melodic part to it.
Okay.
So it's just a kit.
Something like that.
Yeah, but maybe with a bit more presence.
Okay, that's it.
There we go. Something like that.
I'm gonna download it. I'm in mine. Just uses 1 credit. I got lots of credits.
Okay. So now we have our drums. So we'll take a bass line next.
And it's all in the key. It's still all in the key in D. We get 1513, which is quite a bit. So we're looking for. It gives you sub things here. We could have it's under bass, but there's synth, electric, sub, upright. I guess I'll try the first one. And if you don't feel like if you like it, and you're not sure if you want to download it, then you click on the heart, put in your likes.
Yep.
It's a monster. That's pretty good for house.
Yep.
House sound.
Let's download that one. And then finally, let's pick a keys.
So click under bass and then keys, which is right below it. All still in the key of D. It's all still in that tempo too, the 125 to 130 range.
So let's look for something that's a little bit more repetitive and stabby, or chords, something that'll stand out. So you can use the waveform view to kind of act as a filter right off the bat. You know, some things you're not going to bother even previewing because you know from looking at the waveform that it's not quite what you're looking for.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I use the waveform sometimes just to skip. So you're looking for something stabby, so this might be one here. More of a techno sound, I guess. Something like that.
Yeah, that might work. I would say the one before.
These are all from the. Actually, you can tell these are all from the same sample pack.
Yeah,
and
it's the same graphic.
Same graphic, and a lot of times they actually have them named here, and sometimes you can actually combine them and come up with some really cool stuff. Like use part of one, use part of the other. I do that a lot. You can build a whole track. So we can just download.
Let's download the one that was 3 up above that one.
Right there?
The next one up. Yep.
Okay.
And maybe to really fill things out, let's grab a vocal one also.
Okay, it's still on loops, so we have to go to vocals. 13, well it's nice and narrow. It's in the key of D and it's in the right tempo. And And actually, with most of my tracks, like a lot of people, most of my tracks are more of a rhythmic vocal than an actual person singing like lyrics. That's what these seem to be. And these are all from the same sample pack. They seem more for techno to me than for house.
Let's try download.
We could change the
Try the genre.
We can get rid of the tempo.
Yes.
But we might want to keep the tempo, I guess, to keep it all together.
Yeah.
So change the genre.
Yeah. And
Just
go to
genre.
funky. Oh, because you're doing all house right now.
It might even be. We'll try, but I think what's going to happen is going to be. It might be nothing.
Might be less. Yep.
Yeah, 0 matching samples. So that does happen. So when there's 0, you have to kind of come up with a different way of searching.
Okay. Well, let's.
One of the things is we're in the key of D, and I would say if we went into another key,
let's try the key of A, because that's
A would probably have a lot more.
Yeah, and it's also a dominant of
81. Well, more, not a lot more.
It's a dominant of D, so a vocal
okay.
should match.
That's cool. Here's a vocal I've already downloaded. We'll see what that sounds like, because you can see the light blue there, and you can re-download them, and it doesn't take any credits. That's more of a rhythmic one. So we're looking for like more of a. You're looking for more of a.
Almost like a word or two in it.
Okay. So those ones kind of look the same.
I don't want to ever get over you.
That's perfect. Let's download that. Let's see what happens.
I don't want to, sweetheart, even try.
Okay. So if you can pause that.
Spacebar might pause. Yep, spacebar pauses.
So that's basically a pretty good overview of everything, how it works. So I think anyone can see just how powerful this is, how much you can filter and sort stuff. And so let's break away from this and maybe, just for curiosity, let's load our 4 loops that we've just downloaded and put them into Ableton. Okay, so we've just downloaded those 4 samples, and like I say, they can now be used in your own projects separately from Splice. You don't have to be signed into the website anymore. So I've set up an Ableton project, very simple thing. In our Splice demo folder, we've got our vocal sample. We've got our bass, we've got our full drums, and we have our chords. So let's see what we can build. Okay, so I'm going to go, let's widen this out a little bit. Full drums first. We'll bring this over to arrangement view. And then we'll take a bass line and we will, let's set up a new couple tracks. Let's do it this way. Rename drums, rename bass, rename chords, and then rename vocal. Okay, so I'll actually move the samples onto their respective tracks. Then we'll start bringing them into the project. Okay, so I'm going to have it so that the drums keep repeating, the bass keeps repeating, but it only starts after the first 2 bars. These chords won't start until the 9th bar, and the vocals, well, those will start on bar 17. And so let's see what our composition sounds like. Oops, let's start at the very beginning. Okay, that's a very, very simple example of how you can play with these loops and stuff once you've downloaded them. And obviously, those that chord loop did not work well with the other stuff. But other than that, the other three worked passably well together for a quick demonstration of the capabilities of downloading stuff with Splice. So the only other thing that I really wanted to talk about was the plugins section. And so the plugins is neat because with the plugins, basically you've got three different options within the plugins. You've got free downloads, you've got rentals, and you've got outright purchases. And they have a ton of things in here. Like Serum's a very popular one. And there's all kinds of VSTIs, VSTs in there that are free. So basically, here's the options. Okay, so with a free one, what happens is it's third-party plugins, but anything that says free, boom, you download it, you've got it. Okay, if you've got something that's one that you have to buy, like Serum, whatever, you can pay for it outright within this app, and it's got some competitive pricing and stuff on some of these third-party apps. But the most flexible thing for these paid ones, if you don't want to put all that money up front, is you can go onto a rental plan through your Splice account. So what happens is, this is on top of your basic Splice subscription, but with Serum, for example, let's say that it's $180 to buy it outright. You can go on the rent to own, and it's another $10 a month, basically. And so what happens is, every month you pay $10, and you're allowed to use Serum while you are paying your rental fees. If you stop paying your rental fees, then at the end of the month, you can't use it anymore. But the neat thing is, you can gradually pay for it as you're using it over time. You can start and stop. So if I needed to use it for January, February, March of this year, but then I'm off in the woods for the next 9 months and I'm not using a computer, I don't want to be paying the rental fees for those months that I'm not using it, then I can just pay the rental fee for those 3 months and then turn it off. And then the next year, if I want to use it January, February, March again, I can turn it back on and I can rent it for those 3 months again. But the neat thing about this is, anytime you're renting something, those credits accumulate, and once you get to the point where you've paid enough in rentals to be the equivalent of what you had bought it for, so let's say over time, eventually I rent it for 18 months, $10 a month, $180, that's the same cost as the app. Once you reach that point, then you get it forever. It's like you bought the app. Basically, you did just buy the app. So at that point, you don't have to rent it anymore. You've got it permanently. So that's a nice feature. So anyway, this is all that Splice has to offer. And so we wanted to really focus on the Splice sounds section of the website, just for the point of locating samples and so on. But at least this way you also have an overview of the other stuff that Splice.com offers. Okay, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good.
No? Okay, hopefully this was useful. So yeah, check it out. It's a great website. Thanks.